As a new addition to my Go routine, I've been doing life and death problems on a little site called blacktoplay.com. Now, it's pretty cool that blacktoplay.com isn't a chess website and it's a Go website. But more than that, the site itself, it's very beautiful and elegantly designed. The problems are pretty high quality. There's no affiliation here with Starpoint. I just love the website and I've been using it lately. And I think the most important thing is that the problems are pretty well graded. And what I mean by that is the difficulty level that each problem says it is pretty consistent. The progression that you can kind of go through as you go up the ranks, it makes sense to me. In fact, it lines up pretty well with my OGS rating. I just kind of put in my OGS rating there, and the problems were pretty good for my level. I mean, your experience may vary with this. Maybe some of you may not find the problems to be matching your level. I haven't really seen the other levels as much. But as far as I'm concerned, the problems are great for what I'm looking for in a life and death website. And so I've been really enjoying it, and it really motivates you to properly read out the moves, because if you fail, you kind of drop a little bit of rank points and you may end up doing lower level problems for a while, which is fine, but it really makes you think. And I know this isn't a new concept. There are plenty of websites out there like Sumego Hero and stuff, but I've been just really enjoying this website, and I've been, I actually put a little shortcut on my phone so I can just open it up. It looks like an app, as an app, and I just do my little Sumego, and it's been pretty good. So blacktoplay.com, it's a good website for Sumego. Welcome to Starpoint, the show about Go for Go fans away from the board, and today we're talking about how to teach Go to beginners. Now, this is a topic that a listener of the show suggested not long ago, and bear in mind, I'm not really very qualified to be talking about this. I've only taught like a small handful of people how to play Go, so I don't have that much experience, but I do have some teaching experience and various other things. So, I mean, and I've got a podcast to run, so I'm going to be talking about it, okay? Let's start with the board size. And this is going to be a theme throughout the episode that I'm going to be emphasizing, that we are trying our best not to scare away our beginner. And for that reason, we're going to start on a 9x9 board and not on a 19x19 board. I think this is a fairly uncontroversial statement. Most people will agree that it's better to start on the 9x9 because the 19x19 is very overwhelming, and there are just so many other things to think about on the 19x19 that is very unnecessary when you're starting off. A 9x9 is more than enough space to demonstrate the fundamental behaviors of the stones on the board before you go on to the upper level strategy stuff that comes with the 19x19. So if you're going to teach a beginner, I highly recommend starting on the 9x9. If you don't have a 9x9 board, then you can, it's very easy to print one out, actually. You can just go on, look for a 19x19 board pattern on the internet, and then or you can even draw it yourself if you know how to use Illustrator or some kind of vector software like that. And then just print it out and play on the piece of paper. Or if you have a 19x19 board, you can just cover most of the board except for the 9x9 corner with some paper or some books or something. And I think it's important to cover those other parts of the board, because you may think, oh, you can just play on the 9x9 area, but it actually gets pretty confusing as to where the edge is. And that's why I kind of recommend, try to find a 9x9 board, a dedicated one if possible, or one that if you flip over the 19x19, you have a 9x9 on the other side. Those exist as well, or just print one out. I actually got a 9x9 board made custom with the help of a friend who owns a laser cutter, and I just kind of drew out the 9x9 and sent her the file and had her cut the 9x9 out of a piece of MDF board or some kind of particle board, and it works pretty well. It's a nice little handy board that I carry around sometimes if I just want to use a 9x9. So 9x9, that's enough of that. The next thing I would suggest is, if you can, try to have this beginner have a learning buddy, someone else to learn the game with. This is going to help so much because it emphasizes the social aspect of the game and takes the edge off of the intimidation and all the hard stuff that you're going to learn. It makes it fun. I think the Go, we're not like Go players in the West trying to spread the game. We're not typically in academies trying to teach young children in like a very structured way. We are just teaching random strangers, or maybe not strangers, random friends or acquaintances, or it could be strangers, how to play the game of Go because they're just kind of interested in picking up a new hobby. And so with that in mind, I think it's important to make sure that it's a fun and enjoyable experience. And so I think having a learning buddy is good for that. And it makes the person not feel so alone or bad, right? If you're bad, and like if you're the only one who doesn't know how to play the game very well, it can feel kind of discouraging. And to have someone else new starting this hobby with you is great. But I know that's not always easy to get a second person interested in Go. It's already challenging enough to get the first person to agree to learn how to play this beautiful game. But if you can, try to see if you can get a learning buddy for this person. The thing I want to take a break and comment on is that when you approach teaching someone this game, I think it's very important to understand that every beginner is different. In teaching, it's important to acknowledge that everyone has different learning styles. Some people are more touch and kinesthetic focused. Some people are very logical and mathematical. Some people are auditory or linguistic. Some people are very visual. And you may think that Go is just one of these categories as a game. It's not. It's important to stimulate the right senses for every person. And so I think that comes with being a teacher, is knowing the other person and having a relationship and bond with that other person. It can go a long way when you're trying to teach someone the game. And to notice what kind of stimulates the other person is very, very important. There's no set structured way to teach people because everyone's different. Everyone will receive things differently. Everyone will have different skills to bring to the table. And so it's important, if you're going to be a teacher to play this game, to know that you should adjust your approach to this person's unique set of skills and interests. And so it's, teaching is a very social skill, because just because you're good at Go doesn't mean you're going to be good at teaching this game to anybody else. They're very, very different skills. And so if you are really good at Go, that's great. And I think that's going to actually help you, because being better at the game will allow you to step back and really focus on the fundamentals and teach them in a structured way. Whereas if you're not as good and you're kind of fumbling through, it may be a little harder to teach those fundamentals. In fact, there's a concrete example of this that I have experience with. When I play Go with my girlfriend, I can play like in a way where I know that she can win. I can play and adjust my level to what she may find interesting and stimulating, but I'm not as good at chess. So when I play chess with her, and she's going to be mad at me for saying this, but I'm also better than her at chess. But I'm not as good at chess as I am at Go. So I can't afford to lower my level at chess. Otherwise, I might actually lose the game, not on purpose. In Go, I can easily lose the game on purpose and be sure that I lost that game on purpose. If I were to lower my level in chess, I might actually straight up lose, like straight out without me, like, because I might even lose in a regular game. So I may not really be able to lower my skill level. So it does help to be better at the game, although this is probably not something you're going to be able to change by the time someone is interested in learning from you, but it's just a little comment. And speaking of my girlfriend, I'll tell you how I taught her the game. I mean, the beginning is the hard part, right? To get the person interested in the game, interested enough to play the game with you. But once you're done that, I took that little particle board thing that I had a friend help me with, and then we went on a little picnic out in the park, and it was a little date where we played Go on a little blanket spread on the grass, and it was really nice. And I think those little details, the environment that you're in and how you present the game, all that stuff matters a lot as well. And what's the first thing everybody does when you start the game or start teaching the game to someone new? Capture Go. It's the obvious choice in how to explain the game. And I am a big supporter of using Capture Go as an introduction to the game of Go, because I actually have a theory, and it's probably not my theory, but it is a theory that I agree with, that Capture Go was the first form of Go, and that the current Go that we play today evolved from Capture Go. And so I think it makes sense to start with Capture Go. Capture Go, I'm sure everybody here listening knows what Capture Go is, because I think you're all Go players, and all Go players must have played Capture Go at some point, right? I wonder if any of you have never played Capture Go. But anyway, Capture Go is just Go, except you stop the game when one stone has been captured, and the person who captured that stone has won the game. And the way you explain Capture Go to someone, the way I did it at least, and the way I do it whenever I do it, is I put a stone down on the board, and I obviously show a capture of a single stone with all the other stones on the other sides, and take the stone off the board to show them what the capture is. And then I just kind of point at the stone and notice, okay, these are the liberties. I think the confusing thing may be, okay, does it matter whether they're diagonal from the stone or perpendicular to the stone? And I just point at the lines coming from the stone and say, see these lines that emanate from the stone? Those are the liberties. So as long as the points that connect to the stone through these lines, they are occupied by the opponent's stones, that stone is captured. And then you show them kind of other examples of groups, and you just kind of set up a few very easy scenarios where there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stones in a group with like one liberty left, and you ask them where you play to capture the stones. And so introducing this capture rule, you kind of have them, they're probably going to be antsy to start the game and say, okay, I get it. So you go ahead and play. Now, obviously, when you start playing Capture Go, you don't just crush them, you let them win. You let them capture your stone. You do a little give and take, right? You make it too easy, you make it uninteresting. You kind of like challenge them, and if you feel that they really should have understood something at this point, then maybe you can punish them with a victory of your own. And so then what's the next step after Capture Go? I would say that's Capture Go level 1. The common thing that people do is we upgrade Capture Go to, let's have the first person, let's have the winner be the one who captures 2 stones or 3 or 4, and you just kind of keep going like that. And, there are various ways of implementing those variations, but what happened with me and my girlfriend, we were playing Capture Go, and she would say again, and I would reset the board and we would play again. And then one time we were playing, I forget who it was, whether I captured or she captured, but then after the capture, she was like, let's just keep going. It wasn't my suggestion. She just wanted to keep playing after the capture, and I was like, sure, that sounds fun. And we kept on playing, and as we kept on playing, allowing each other to keep capturing, she asked me, is this Go? And I was kind of just like, yeah, you know what? It is Go. Because, the rules about eyes and things like that stuff kind of comes as emergent properties of the game of Capture Go, right? Because, I mean, at some point during all this Capture Go stuff, you're going to have to explain you can't play a stone that is itself going to be captured and do a suicide move, right? That's one of the rules that's going to come out. You know, I would suggest not starting out the game with all these detailed rules, and especially, you know, don't mention things like that. But you're going to have to mention this stuff as you go on, because certain situations will arise. And I think that's a good way to do it, to mention the rules as they come up in relevance. So moving on to what you should try to train your beginner at. I think after a few rounds of Capture Go, you might want to isolate certain scenarios. You may start to notice that your student has certain difficulties and they keep making certain mistakes that are very obvious to you as a seasoned player, but may not be obvious to them. One of the things that I think is very common to misunderstand is second line interactions. I think this is second nature to those of us who have been with the game for a while, but it's easy for us to underestimate the amount of time it takes to really understand what happens to stones on the second line, and that the second line is the line of death or defeat. I think the first line is the line of death and the second line is the line of defeat. And if you want to explain second line interactions and you want to talk about the second line, you're going to have to explain what that means too, right? The first line, this is the first line, the one that borders the entire board. And the second line is the one more inner to that. And so imagine, and one way to explain it to people is to imagine that the edges of the board is the ground and that the middle is the sky. I don't think it takes much for people to understand that. It's a pretty simple concept once you start thinking of it that way. But again, I think it's important to pepper these little details in and not bombard your beginner with all this stuff from the get-go. Let them start playing first. If they ask questions, answer those questions. If things come up, maybe take a second to explain certain things. But I would say try to hold back. I think, you know, as Go players, we have so much that we have learned over the years of playing Go. It's easy for us to get overexcited and start saying things like, oh yeah, now you can Tanuki and then there's a snapback here and then this prevents a monkey jump and blah, blah, blah. And that's not going to be very fun for anyone who's starting to learn the game to just hear a bunch of jargon. So I would try to avoid a lot of that talk as much as possible and just stick to what's going on the board and try to have the person engaged and have fun with it. I think that's very, very important to present the game in a fun way and joke around and be casual about it and not make it so serious. Because I think even ourselves, we like, as people who are more into the hobby, we forget to have a little fun now and then, and we get a little too focused on improving and learning and everything like that. So it's important, especially at the beginner stage. I think the thing is that the goal here is not to make a master out of this person, but to spark a love of the game for this person. And I think that's very, very important to instill in that beginner rather than making sure they know everything. Because if they love the game, they're going to figure it out. They're going to find out everything that they need to know. But if they don't love the game, they're not going to get anywhere. So resuming into what we should be teaching. So second line interactions, I think, is one of those things that maybe it may be worth to take a little bit of time to pause and set up the board and say, hey, what's going to happen to this stone? Very basic stuff, but pretty hard for a beginner. Obviously, you're going to have to mention Atari at some point. And then once you've started to get a better flow of the game, I think ladders are a very good way to introduce the game and the kind of like fun things that can happen on the board to someone. And I have a little story about what happened when I introduced my girlfriend to ladders in the game of Go. I just set up a simple ladder, and I asked her, hey, which move should you play as the person who is catching the opponent in a ladder? Which move should you play to try to capture this stone? And she chose the correct move. And oftentimes when beginners answer, they'll just tell you the answer and they won't say why. They won't kind of elaborate. So it could very well be a lucky guess. And so it's important to question and say, hey, so why do you think that? So I asked her why. And I expected her to say, oh, because when you play here, then white will play here, then black will play here, then white will play here, and then it goes all the way to the end of the board. That's what a ladder is, right? But that's not the answer that I got. And what I got was actually pretty cool. She said, if I do it this way, white will only have 2 liberties, but if I do it the other way, white will have 3 liberties. And I'm like, you know what? That's actually, I've never thought of it that way. It's very obvious when you say it like that, but that's very cool. And I thought that was like a very nice little insight from a beginner who kind of is looking at it with fresh eyes to notice the liberty count in a ladder, and notice that when you push the stone one way, it'll end up with 2 liberties, and when you push the stone another way, it'll end up with 3 liberties. Hey, you're trying to reduce liberties on this group, so you're going to want to do it so that they end up with 2 liberties. And that was a very cool insight to hear her say. Months later, I would test her again, and she was very impulsive, and she would get this whole thing wrong and forget all the stuff that she told me, that genius stuff that I heard from her when I first taught her the game. And so I think it's very easy for us to lose our beginner eyes and just start playing out of instinct when we think we know what's going on. And I think the thing is that when you start, you're clueless about the game, so you're really, scratching your head about it, and maybe you're able to see things that you're not able to when you're more used to all this stuff. And another thing I should mention here when teaching a new player, some of them will take offense to taking a handicap if you suggest taking a handicap to make things interesting. It's like they don't understand the depth of the game of Go. And that's okay. You can't expect them to. You can't expect them to know just how vast this world is. So try to bite your tongue. That's my advice. Let them do what they want. If they don't want a handicap, don't give them a handicap. And because it's not important that you are competitive in the game. It's important for them to explore the game on their own terms and understand how interesting it can be, and it is, and let them have that space to grow and understand just how much room there is to grow. And if they're especially insolent, then you can crush them. And then you may lose a student, but we can only be patient for so long, right? But no, I seriously recommend being very patient with people. If they're saying like, oh, I could probably beat you next week, or I could probably, so you'll get comments like that sometimes. Just be patient with it. Understand that they haven't had the experience of trying to get better at this game as you have, and they'll learn in due time if they stick with the game. And so just try to be patient with them. And again, it's important to observe the way they're interacting with the game and create situations and scenarios based on the kinds of mistakes they're making, the things that they're interested in. I think, again, this is the most important thing, is to treat every student as a unique individual and try to really communicate with that person and see what stimulates them and understand why they want to learn the game. And do they really want to learn the game? Understand their state of mind and how they feel about the game. If they're kind of like wishy-washy about it and they're not really that interested, don't force them into the game. Don't go to 19 by 19 too soon. Make sure they have certain things checked off their 9 by 9 list before you do the 19 by 19. Like, I think you should know the ladder. Obviously, the ladder is a very important thing to know. And the basic dead shapes. You should, at some point, know about the co-rule. Some very fundamental stuff that you need to know on the 9 by 9, which is pretty tactical stuff, and then you can kind of slowly move on to the 19 by 19. I would say as soon as possible, as soon as you've learned all the basic tactics that you're able to learn on the 9 by 9, it's important to move to the 19 by 19. But I think those are basically the tips that I have for teaching complete beginners. Hey, have you checked out Go Magic yet? Go Magic is a website for learning Go. You can find many very high quality lesson videos. I would say pretty much the highest quality lesson videos that you can find online about the game of Go. And the best part is they have interactive quizzes and knowledge checks throughout the lessons to make sure you're on track. And they cover a wide range of topics, including how to play in the opening, common mistakes, how to use attachments, and even some on Go history. And they're categorized for all skill levels, so you're sure to find something for you. Get 25% off your very first purchase on GoMagic.org by using my code STARPOINT. That's STARPOINT without any spaces at checkout. So just to recap, let's go over some of the don'ts of teaching new players how to play Go. Don't say eyes on the first day. I know eyes are very, very fundamental to playing Go, but it's a surprisingly difficult concept to grasp, especially if you're just learning about the capture rule. So try to delay mentioning eyes for a long time, because I know when I first started to learn the game, my friend was shouting eyes, eyes, eyes at me, and I was very confused for a long time, although it was entertaining. So if you're going to say eyes, at least say it in an entertaining way. Definitely don't say ko or tanuki or moyo. It's very easy to get passionate about the game. I know it's a very beautiful game, a lot of beautiful terms, but let's try to hold back a bit and not use all this fancy jargon against our new babies, our Go babies. Let them capture stones. Let them, win a little capture Go like a little baby, and then maybe we can move on to higher level concepts like eyes and why we need them. Don't have them play against AI. I strongly recommend not having them play against AI. I know it's tempting because they're not going to want to play real players. They're going to be intimidated. But AI, it's just too unnatural. I think AI is very bad especially because they play so fast all the time. And I think that these beginners, you don't want them to think too long, but you definitely don't want them to play instantly. You want them to think a little bit. And so having the AI play with them, this is what I saw with my girlfriend. She started playing AI and she started playing super fast with the AI, and she got mad at the AI saying that it played too fast. It was kind of funny, but probably not a good idea for a beginner to play too much against AI. Maybe you can try it out a little bit, I guess. Don't use this as an opportunity to show off how skilled you are at Go. This is probably the biggest don't. Like, don't crush your opponent, your new beginner, your Go baby. Don't crush them before they learn how to walk. This is not the time to be showing off your skills. They will in due time appreciate your skills if they continue to play the game, but if they don't continue to play the game, they'll just give up and say, wow, this person just destroyed me, I must suck, and I don't want to play this game ever again. So don't do that. Try to be nice and play to their level and be open and communicative with them. And with that, it's time for the DDK Advice Corner. And the tip of the day is consider the aggressive move first. Sometimes when you're getting a review from a strong player, they'll pause and say something like, I think you can cut here. And I want to clarify. They're not saying cut if you feel like it or don't, which is kind of what it sounds like when they say, I think you can cut here. They're saying, I think you can cut here, so you should cut here. Because you can, you are strong enough to cut. And what is a cut? Probably the most aggressive move that you can think of in Go. And I think it's important for us to venture out as much as we can into our game and think about what is the most aggressive move? What is the most ambitious move? and then see if there's any problems with it. If there are problems with it, then you can scale it back and say, okay, let's do something a little more conservative. But if you consider the aggressive move first and then there are no problems with it, you should do it. That's just a pretty simple piece of advice that you should probably carry out throughout the game. To illustrate it further, let's say you're trying to get a date with someone and your friend says to you, hey, they told me they would want to go out with you if you asked them. You wouldn't spend months wooing them and trying to sneak little hints here and there, because you would just go straight up and ask them for a date, because that you know that that's going to work. The most aggressive move. You can tell me and be the judge of whether that analogy works or not, but that's the tip of the day. Consider the aggressive move first. And with that, it's time for some Go news. And we got a new what's new with the AGA. Not a whole lot happened in this AGA meeting that was conducted on February 18th, 2024. But there are a few things that kind of went over during the meeting. One of them is they mentioned again that they do want to continue promoting continue promoting the game of Go using Twitch and YouTube streamers. So as this trial run, they want to continue evaluating whether it's viable. And I mean, I think that whether it's viable or not, if it's not viable, then you're doing something wrong, because I think it's very, very important to integrate the content creators on, in interest of promoting the game of Go for the AGA. They also covered some problems with the PandaNet AGA City League, where several of their participants were just letting their AGA memberships expire. It's not very clear as to what that means, but I assume it means that during the duration of the tournament, they didn't update their membership to continue their membership throughout the tournament. So they're trying to address that, as well as last year they're acknowledging that there was some delay in paying the participants in a timely manner. So they're trying to make sure that is not going to happen again. Let's see, what else did they cover during this AGA meeting? They went over some of the international tournament stuff. So Alan Huang performing well at the World Amateur Go Championships, placing 5th overall. And Edward Zhang will represent the AGA in the next World Amateur Go Championship in Tokyo, which is coming up in May. Sawu Wang will represent the Senko Women's Cup in Japan as the top qualifying women's candidate. And Alex Chi will represent the AGA at the Chunlan Cup, as I covered last week about the misclick game with Ryan Lee, which I still can't believe happened. But anyway, Alex Chi is the rightful qualified person to play at the Chunlan Cup. And let's see, they talked a little bit about the Go Congress, 2024 Go Congress, and established some kind of policy and governance committee, which sounds like a bunch of bureaucratic stuff that I'm not sure exactly what it'll do, but we'll see. And finally, they did discuss a little bit about the AGA transgender policy, and they did not approve whatever policy they drafted because they want to ensure the privacy of the players. I say, you know what, it's a sensitive topic, get it right and make sure it's written correctly before you pass it through, whatever that policy may be. So, they don't really say exactly what the policy is, but I assume they're working on it. They emphasize again that they're going to try to transition to Fisher time settings, and that they will for the 2024 U.S. Open, but not yet for the 2024 U.S. Masters. Not sure why, but that's their decision for now. So, they kind of mention a lot of stuff they talk about. They don't go too much into detail, but the next AGA board meeting will be on April 28th, 2024. And the next piece of Go news. Big news, Shin Jin-seo carries Team Korea to win the Nongshim Cup with 6 straight wins. Just as a recap, Jia Er-hao of the China team had a 7-game win streak before falling to Shin Jin-seo. And Shin Jin-seo then went on to defeat Iyama Yuta, Zhao Chen-yu, Ke Jie, Ding Hao, Gu Zihao, taking out the entirety of Team China alone to win the Nongshim Cup for Korea. And unfortunately, when he was returning home to Korea, he received news of his grandmother's passing. So he had this to say, roughly translated: "My emotions were mixed. While I was happy to win, it was also a sad day for personal reasons," referring to his grandmother's funeral, and that he couldn't fully enjoy the moment, but it is still a satisfying achievement that he achieved in Go. And that he was already aware of his grandmother's condition, and he emphasized that he believes in playing Go without collapsing due to personal emotions and doing your best until to the end. So he considers this win as a battle fought alongside his grandmother. So condolences to Shin Jin-seo and his family for the loss of his grandmother. And the final bit of Go news I have today is Korea winning the first Nongshim Paeksansu Cup, which is the Nongshim Cup equivalent for senior players. And among senior players, we got some legends. It's really cool. The game of Go is really cool because you can still have all these great legends from the past play. Unlike a lot of the sports, you don't see Michael Jordan really hitting up the courts very much, but you see all these legends in this tournament, like Ni Wei-ping, Yoda Norimoto, Cho Eun-yeon, Ma Xiao-chun, Takemiya Masaki, so many greats playing in this tournament. At the end of the day, Korea took it home, winning 180 million won, which is about 135,000 US dollars. And that'll do it for Go News. It's time for listener mail. AO Tennis 22 says, "I've been at a 6 to 7 Q plateau for a while, but Fearzan Fordan recently played a teaching game with me and suggested I look to make territory while attacking, and if the opponent shows interest in a certain area, make them pay for it if they're inevitably going to get that area. Those were really helpful." Those are some great tips, AO Tennis 22. Thanks for writing in. I think it's a big step to know that you're attacking for a certain purpose rather than just attacking, because I think there's a point in the game where you're attacking to kill the thing, but then you evolve that into, attacking gives me free moves to get value other parts of the board and territory and things like that. So that one's a good tip. The second tip I also really like, the concept of making your opponent pay for it and getting something out of what your opponent's getting. Like, if your opponent's going to get something, make sure you squeeze that value and get something for yourself. There's a converse to that as well, where if you know you're going to lose something, make sure you get the most value out of it while you lose it. Awesome tips. Thanks for writing in. User NB1XP7CP6B says, "It's fascinating to hear about your Go epiphanies and how they've shaped your journey. Can't wait to gain some insights from your experiences." Well, I hope those experiences help you out, and let me know if they do, because I'm not someone who thinks that just saying tips improves people at Go, but if you find some kind of epiphany of your own from my epiphanies, I'm all for it, and I want to hear about it. Thanks for writing in. Plixik says, "Thanks for continuing to talk about Go. The best art advice I ever got was just draw what it looks like. I spent years studying anatomy, measurements, and how to draw perspective lines. That advice broke me out of all the noise from my studying. After that, I dropped studies completely and just visualized what I wanted to see and drew. I think this applies to Go as well. You can consider everything from your studies, every move, or you can just read each situation and just play out what your desired result looks like." Thanks again for writing in, Plixik. That's so cool to hear that there are people who share the other hobbies that I have among my listeners, because this is a Go podcast, but I do mention a lot of other things, and so it's awesome to see other people chime in about other hobbies and how it relates to Go. I think that's one of the things I do like talking about in terms of Go, how it kind of has a Venn diagram with other fields. So I really like your insights about trying to draw what it looks like. It's like you have to kind of break out of this mentality where you're trying to follow certain rules, and then you just have to kind of do what it's supposed to be. Does that make sense? I hope I understood you correctly. But anyway, thanks for writing in, Plexec. Finally, Pat writes in, "Hey Justin, I'm an Australian who found Go online and have loved diving into the culture and listening to your podcast. I just wanted to say thank you. I'm about 16Q at the moment, and I was wondering if you could perhaps talk a bit about invasions and fighting." From Pat. Well, hello there from the United States all the way over to down under. Pat, thanks so much for listening. Thanks for writing in. I'm glad I could help expose you to some more of the Go world through the podcast. 16Q is a great place to be. A lot of room to grow. A lot of exciting things up in your journey. And in terms of invasions and fighting, I can maybe touch on that. I'll have to see if I can come up with some content that revolves around it. I'll see what I have. If you have more specific questions, I'd love to answer those. But in terms of just invasions and fighting, I'll let that sink in my little brain here and see what I come up with. So thanks for the inspiration for a new episode. Pat, thanks for writing in. The question of the week here is, have you had any interesting experiences teaching beginners to how to play Go? I'm always such a mess at the end of the episode. It's like my brain just like slowly deteriorates. But yes, that's the question of the week. How to teach Go to complete beginners. Have you had any experiences teaching beginners, and do you have any advice or tips on your own or interesting stories? I want to hear all about it. So if you want to write in, share your thoughts by writing a comment on the Reddit post for this or on YouTube. Or if you have any stories that are unrelated to today's question of the week or have any questions for me, you can also comment or ask me those, or you can email me directly at starpointbaduk@gmail.com. That's starpointbaduk@gmail.com. And if you're a YouTube listener, I would greatly appreciate a like and a subscribe. If you're a podcast listener, reviews and ratings also help. A special thank you to Chris M. for supporting Starpoint. Thanks everyone for listening, and keep playing Go.